Hello and welcome to seven
Some number.
some number. I've already forgotten. Welcome to a new episode of the Comic Book Club. I'm your host Matt Lasik,
I'm your co-host Kendra Forte.
and this is just a chill episode. We're gonna chit and chat. Next week we're talking about some Hellboy stuff, so there's not really any background to go over. So yeah, let's start off with a headline. Because if our regular listeners will know that a couple of weeks ago we talked about all of DC's weird, confusing timeline stuff, and they're back at it. They're at it again. This headline comes from CBR.com, our old frenemies CBR. Future State, which is the name of the event. Everything you need to know about DC's next event. This is an event that's coming in 2021.
Is it another timeline rewrite? Is it another entry point for new readers?
I am not sure what it's meant to be, because I know that the basic idea is that for varying reasons, depending on like which series you're reading, the old heroes can no longer do their job. So like Superman was ousted from the planet for political reasons or something, and Batman was supposedly killed. So like it's like the next generations of heroes is coming up and whatever. They're doing this with like basically every ongoing, just for like a couple of issues. What I'm not clear on is whether all of the stories are supposed to be in the same possible future timeline or if they're exploring different possible futures within one event. It's more likely that it's the first one, because doing the second one is really sloppy and gross, and I would hate them if they did that. But also, this is DC we're talking about, so
DC
it's possible.
has never cared.
Right. So the main eye catchers are that the new Wonder Woman is let me try and find it in the article. The new Wonder Woman is a Brazilian woman named Yara Flor. So we now have a person of color in the Wonder Woman role.
Nice.
The new Superman is Clark's son John, which is not surprising at all.
Who's the new Batman?
I'm not sure if it's been stated, because like the promotional issues has like a full mask thing going on, so you can't really see. A while ago, this was like back in the spring, I think, when DC was planning. Okay, so for a little bit of background, back in the spring, DC announced that they were working on a new status quo change called like Next Generation or something. And like not many details were known about it, but it was going to be something I think similar to like New 52, where they were going to make like major long-lasting changes. But then I'm going to look up the details. A man by the name of Dan Didio was, I think he was the publisher for DC. Yes, he was co-publisher, and he was, I think, one of the people trying to spearhead the Next Generation thing. He was removed from the company, and all of his plans ground to a halt, which included the new generation, Next Generation thing. I think Didio was also one of the main people behind New 52. I think. I'm not entirely sure on that, but that could have also been a reason, because New 52 was very poorly received.
Wait, you said Batman is dead, but he's not dead in New 52, is he?
No.
How many timelines are there?
I'm shrugging, chat. I don't know. I've been on Twitch too much. Right, so Wonder Woman's now a young Brazilian woman. Superman is now his son. Meanwhile, in the Batman verse, Gotham City has been taken over by some sort of totalitarian regime, as it does every other Friday. Batman is supposedly killed, but we already know from the promotional material that he's not actually dead. Oh, that's right. The reason I brought up Dan Didio and the whole canceled reboot thing was because the one thing that we knew for sure was that Batman was going to be a black man.
Oh, okay.
I don't, like, again, since it all ground to a halt and no, like, real details have come out, I'm not sure if it was going to be, like, a new character or a character that we already know stepping into the Batman role, or if they were just going to retcon Bruce Wayne into being a black person. we'll never
Bruce
know.
Wayne is now a black person.
Again, the promotional materials for Future State, the Batman is like full masked, so we can't really see who he might be. But yeah, so the Batman corner of Future State is going to be them fighting against the Magistrate. That's pretty much all the. Yeah, like I said, a lot of things are being reworked for this. Wonder Woman, Mr. Miracle, Justice League, obviously, Flash, Green Lantern, etc., etc. Shazam. I am curious as to see what's going to happen. I usually don't. If I were not doing this podcast, I wouldn't be reading these articles because I usually don't really try and like read ahead. I just kind of wait for comics to come out and then I read them blind because that's how I get the most enjoyment out of it. So I can feel like this is a natural surprise because comic solicitations are put out like months and months and months in advance, so things are kind of spoiled a lot.
Then what's the point?
Well, the point is for, like advertisers and shops that are selling the physical copies can like put up like advertising stuff for them or like spread the word through so that to like incite more business. The biggest example is like the story arc just ended recently of Nightwing like losing his memory. He just got his memory back, but like people knew months in advance that Nightwing was going to get his memory back because of solicitations. So that's the main reason why I try not to read these articles really and like look into solicitations because that ruins the suspense for me. I just thought this was a unique situation since we were just talking about DC's status quo changes, and this is like the next big thing that's coming up. Okay, that's that. Did you have a topic for us?
No, I did not.
Okay, I guess I'll just ignore whatever headline you have pulled up there. We've got a listener question for the first ever time.
Nice.
I will be perfectly candid that yes, it is my girlfriend who sent me this question, but she's still a listener, so it still counts. Okay. If you want to send us questions, you can email us at cbbcpod@gmail.com. That's cbbcpod@gmail.com, or tweet us at cbbcpod. So the question is, what are your backgrounds with comic books? When did you get into them? How and how long have you been into comic things?
Cool.
I can start.
Please do.
Yes. So being a male child who grew up in the 2000s and 2010s, obviously, like that, we've just been inundated with superhero stuff for the past like 20, 30 years. So just, like Spider-Man bike helmets and blow up toys and whatever, whatever, just toys and such. What really got me into the first thing that really got me into comics was so I am from the Philadelphia area, and the Philadelphia Inquirer, which was the newspaper we got, at one point they started bundling in reprints of the initial Amazing Spider-Man run. So the same stuff that we covered on our third ever episode, I think. What the stuff that we did on the first actual the first actual book club episode. I for whatever reason I talked to my parents about it, and they never like signed up for anything. They just started showing up with the Sunday papers. So yeah, my first real exposure to like single issue comics was those reprints. And then from there, growing up, we'd go to like grocery stores and whatever, and I'd look in like the magazine department, and they'd have these little it was like thicker than a usual comic book issue, and they were like made for kids. It was like these almost like bundles, like anthology collection type things, where it was like 3 or 4 reprints of other comics. It would be like a couple that were written specifically for kids and like one older issue. So I picked those up from time to time, and that sort of slowly expanded my comic book exposure. Around then is when like the MCU stuff started coming out, so of course I saw all those movies. And then the next big step forward was I was in 5th grade, and I think for like my birthday or something, my parents got me this pair of like really thick encyclopedias, one for DC and one for Marvel, and they were just like A to Z alphabetic encyclopedias of like all the characters and teams and organizations within that comic book universe. And let me tell you, I read those things cover to cover multiple times over. Those were like that really baked into my brain the encyclopedic knowledge that I have now. And then I got a smartphone, and then the internet happened. So they kind of fell out of use. But oh my gosh, I would spend hours reading through those. Great. They were great. And then in 2015, in my freshman year of high school, I started actually going after and reading like the current ongoings. I distinctly remember it started with New 52 Flash, because I picked up a trade paperback of the first volume of the Flash New 52, and I was like, "Oh, this is really good." And then I started just catching up with New 52 Flash, and then reading his ongoings, and then I over the course of, I guess it's been the past 5 years, I just slowly expanded to where now I'm reading almost every current ongoing, and I've read like basically everything that's come out, everything that's like I've read everything that's like considered influential or important that's ever come out, and I've read basically everything that's been put out since like the 90s till now. I read a lot of comics. So yeah, that's how I got into it. I'm that guy that when you're talking about the MCU will be like, actually in the comics it's like this, and everyone goes, we don't care. If it doesn't have Robert Downey Jr.'s face on it, we don't care what you have to say. What about you, Kendra? How'd you get into comics?
Well, this is our 7th episode.
Mm-hmm.
So 8 weeks ago, Matt said, "Do you want to be on my comic book show?" And I said, "Sure." And now here I am. I mean, I watch all the MCU, and
naturally,
I every so often do a deep Wikipedia dive on a random character.
Those are fun.
And find everything I can about their backstory and how it differs from the MCU. But mostly, I have no credentials for being here.
You didn't read any comics when you were a kid or anything?
No.
Okay.
I was more of a book child than a comic book child.
Yeah, I was too. But then I discovered comic books, and well, you know,
pictures annoyed me. Pictures took up too much space.
Okay. Yeah, that's an opinion. Okay.
So the first ever comic I read was the Spider-Man comic that we read.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, then we've got really different perspectives on what we're reading here. Okay then. Geez, it's only been 15 minutes. Headlines. Let's see what headlines can we pull up. Probably not much. I should have done this work beforehand.
Question: Who are the Supernaturals?
I don't know. Probably something that ran for like 2 issues in the 90s and no one cares about.
It's looking like yes. It's looking like it was just a Halloween special.
Okay, so Ken just pulled up another CBR article titled "The Supernaturals: Who Are Marvel's Forgotten Dark Avengers?"
So the Dark Avengers included Black Cat, Brother Voodoo, Werewolf, Gargoyle, Santana, and Ghost Rider.
Black Cat is an interesting inclusion, because her shtick is usually just, I steal things and be sexy and give Spider-Man confusion about his love life. So it's weird to see her like in the same lineup as like Satana and Ghost Rider. That's fun.
So you know who Satana and Ghost Rider are?
Yes. So actually timely. Satana is the, I believe, half-sister of Damian Hellstrom, and I think the main characters of Hellstrom is at least the main character of Hulu's newest Marvel series, Hellstrom.
Okay.
Which apparently is bad. I haven't watched it, but people don't seem to like it. So Satana and Damian are both children of Marvel's incarnation of the devil, that being Mephisto. So usually they're good guys, but they also have like fangs and horns, and like Damian's got like a the star in the circle tattoo like on his chest, and sometimes it lights on fire. So debatable whether they're actually good guys. But yeah, that's who Satana is.
And Ghost Rider?
Ghost Rider, there have been multiple Ghost Riders. The first one was actually when Marvel was doing like cowboy stuff in like the 40s, 50s, around then. The first Ghost Rider, most people don't know this. The first Ghost Rider was just like a dude with a white mask that rode a horse around and shot people. You know, cowboy things.
Cowboy things.
But all the subsequent Ghost Riders have been people that have made deals with some hellish entity, and they get like a flaming skull, and usually they ride a motorcycle around. There has been like a prehistoric Ghost Rider that rides like a zombie woolly mammoth. And the most recent Ghost Rider just drives around a muscle car. He calls it his Hell Charger. So that's fun. The Ghost Rider is usually fueled by a spirit of vengeance. So his stories are usually very vengeance-based. He has this ability, I forget what it's called. It's like penance stare. That's what it is. The penance stare, where like if you make eye contact with him, then you're forced to like relive all of your sins from the perspective of the victims. So that's fun. You have to like relive all your guilt. So there's been a couple characters like Punisher and Hulk where like Ghost Rider rolls him and he's like, relive your guilt. And he was like, I don't have guilt. And it's like, what?
No guilt. Head empty, no guilt.
Head empty. That's something we can talk about. For, I don't know, a couple years, I think, the Spider-Man line of titles have been operating under this big overarching plot with this like mysterious character named Kindred, who's like all like withered and covered in bandages and like has giant centipedes around him, and he's like doing like the machinations in the background and everything. And like from his monologues, it's very clear that it's someone who knows Peter Parker and has a grudge against him for reasons, and also someone that like died and came back from hell. So that's fun. So Kindred's been like doing his little machinations for years, and they just revealed who he is in the most recent issue of Amazing Spider-Man, and it's freaking Harry Osborn.
I don't know who that is.
Son of Norman Osborn.
Keep going.
Okay, hold on. Have you seen... I'm digging into my collection here. Have you seen the Sam Raimi Spider-Man films featuring Tobey Maguire?
Yes.
Okay,
so it's been years, though.
So you know how in the first one there was the Green Goblin?
Yes.
Okay. The Green Goblin is Norman... Well, they're both in the Green Goblin. The first Green Goblin was Norman Osborn, and his son Harry was Pete's best friend while they were in college together.
Okay, yes, I remember that plot line.
Harry was also like he had a storyline where like he was abusing drugs, and that was like one of the first times that comic books like addressed that issue, very famously. And it like eventually he became the Green Goblin, and then like reformed, blah blah blah. If you remember 2 weeks ago when we were talking about the whole One More Day thing, when like Peter made a deal with the devil to reset the timeline, his personal timeline.
Yes.
So previous to One More Day, Harry was dead.
As one does.
As one does in comic books.
As one does when one abuses drugs. Don't do drugs, kids.
I don't think it was related to his drug abuse. Like the end of that storyline in the 70s was like that he, kicked the habit or whatever. But then part of the One More Day reset was that Harry was revealed to be alive. So the fact that, and I think he's he hasn't really been seen in the comics for a while, but I guess now that's because he's been busy being Kindred. What I am curious to see, and there's a lot of debate going on in like the fan circles about this. What I'm curious to see is whether this Harry who has been Kindred is like the current timeline Harry, or if it's Harry from before One More Day that's like found his way into this timeline.
Any number of timelines, Harry's.
Right, because the what we know about Kindred is that he's someone who died supposedly because of Peter's actions and like has crawled his way out of hell. And like I just said, before One More Day, Harry was dead. So it's likely that this is somehow Harry, the Harry from before Mephisto resetting the timeline.
So is there another Harry that's alive? That's not Kindred?
I am going to pull up the Wikipedia article for Harry Osborn because I do not remember what he has done recently. He is determined to redeem his family's name from his father's villainous legacy and to be a responsible parent to his sons. So yes, in Harry's most recent non-Kindred experience, he was very much like a good guy. So it would be weird to have this sudden 180 face heel turn, which makes it like the signs are pointing towards this being some previous incarnation of Harry, which would be interesting because before the big reveal, the prevailing theory was that Kindred was Peter before One More Day. He was the Peter that existed before One More Day happened, and that he was like, well, this current Peter has a better life than I did. I'm going to mess with his stuff. Let's see. Death Return.
X-Men, Marvel's Mutants discovered Alice in Wonderland really happened.
Okay, I need to see this article now because I have no idea what that means. In the Marvel Universe, it's a real place and it's dangerous. This is an article coming from Screen Rant. So yeah, just to close the Kindred conversation, the current timeline Harry in his last appearance was very much like, I'm going to take the Osborn family name and make it a good name again. So it wouldn't really make sense if Kindred is like current Osborn. But I guess we'll see. They're doing this. They're spinning into this big event called Last Rites that deals with Kindred and what he's been doing. So yes, very, very excited to see what's to come. We have another question coming in, also from my girlfriend. She's asking, in reference to next week's reading topic, which is Hellboy, what Hellboy movies are out, and do they fit into the comics that we are reading for next time? So, yes and no. So there have been 3 Hellboy movies that have been released. 2 with, I always forget the guy's name, so I'm going to have to Google it again.
Is it not David Harbour?
No, David Harbour is in the most recent one, which is unrelated to the first 2. The first 2 starred Ron Perlman as Hellboy. It was Hellboy, which came out in 2004, and then Hellboy 2, The Golden Army, which came out in 2008. And then the reboot, which came out April of last year, which starred David Harbour. So the storylines we are reading for next week are Seed of Destruction and Wake the Devil, which are the first 2 storylines. And the 2004 film was an adaptation of Seed of Destruction. The Golden Army, which is the sequel to the second movie with Ron Perlman, was a very loose adaptation of a storyline that ran in a spin-off series. So a little bit of a spoiler, I guess, for next week. Hellboy works for an organization called the BPRD. It's the Bureau of Paranormal Research and Defense, BPRD. And they, eventually got their own spin-off ongoing that focused on the BPRD. And the first storyline from that spin-off ongoing was loosely adapted into the Golden Army, very loosely. And then the reboot with David Harbour was an adaptation of a storyline that came kind of halfway through the Hellboy. Because Hellboy is unique in comic books in that it has a beginning and end. So the 2019 one was a adaptation of a couple smaller storylines, namely Darkness Calls, The Wild Hunt, The Storm and the Fury, and Hellboy in Mexico.
In Mexico?
Yes. Hellboy in Mexico, none of which are being covered in next week's episode, so you don't have to worry about that. But yes, if you want to, I guess, see if you're, not willing to read comic books but still want to know what we're talking about, the first half of what we're talking about next week was adapted into the 2004 Hellboy film.
Batman, the Robin King's utility belt is insanely twisted and evil. So
Right.
Who is the Robin King?
Okay, so the current DC event that's going on, it's been going on for a while, which is actually created by Snyder and Capullo, who were the creative team on the Batman story that we covered last week. The current ongoing event is Dark Knight's Death Metal, which is the sequel to Dark Knight's Metal, and the whole concept around that is that there is a multiverse, and then there is a dark multiverse.
Obviously.
So, whereas the multiverse is like 52 discrete timelines that have like their own histories and whatever, the dark multiverse is populated by a possibly infinite number of timelines that are formed from the nightmares and worries and anxieties of those that live in the positive multiverse. So the main draw of the original Dark Knight's Metal event was that the bad guys were all like evil versions of Batman, of like, what if Batman did this thing? What if Batman did that thing? With their leader being the Batman Who Laughs, which is like, what if Batman and the Joker like were one person, basically. So Dark Knight's Death Metal, whereas Dark Knight's Metal brought in like 6 or 7, I think, like dark Batmans, Death Metal has like a couple dozen. They just keep pumping out new evil Batmen. One of which, who has been catching the eye of a lot of fans, is the Robin King. And this is a child. The Robin King is like, what if Batman was evil from birth, and he was just like a little sadistic freak, and like he killed his own parents and like destroyed his world's Justice League all as a child. So this headline from Screen Rant is referencing a recently released one-shot that explored things from the Robin King side, and had a panel that showed his utility belt and like had all this like weird twisted technology that was like each piece was custom made to destroy a certain like member of the Justice League. So he had like unholy water and like a ring made out of all forms of kryptonite, and so on and so forth. So that's exciting. That event is still currently ongoing. It's nearing its end, I'd say, because it's been running for quite a while. But yes, that is a fun event that is happening. Let's see what other headlines we can pull up. Headlines are fun. Possibly.
If we can find them.
Here is a rumor that Oscar Isaac is being considered to star in the Moon Knight Disney Plus series.
I don't know what Moon Knight is.
Moon Knight is a smaller Marvel hero. He's kind of got his own like cult following. He's more street level, I'd guess. You know, like on par with like Daredevil and Spider-Man instead of like, you know, Avengers level member. His whole shtick is that he is blessed by Khonshu, the Egyptian god of the moon, and like he has multiple personalities. One of which is Moon Knight, so it's not like he's just putting on the mask. He's like becoming the identity of Moon Knight. He pops up. I like him. He pops up every once in a while and does some funny things. And he's getting a Disney Plus show. And apparently Oscar Isaac is being considered to star in that. So that'll be fun. What else is going on in the world of comics? Not much. This week is kind of spare on headlines. There's not really much going on that wasn't, previously announced. I saw some promotional material for the next season of Titans, where Red Hood is making his appearance, which shouldn't really be a surprise to anyone, because Red Hood was being teased from like season 1 and now we're up to season 3, and they're like, oh, Red Hood might be coming. It's like, yeah, obviously Red Hood's coming. Anyone who knows anything about
we're
Robin
on season
stuff.
3 of Titans?
Apparently. I haven't watched any of it.
Neither have I, but it doesn't seem like 3 years ago where that trailer came out.
Who knows? Oh yeah, the infamous curse word Batman trailer.
Yeah.
I had forgotten about how big of a stink it made. I think I forgot about it because like everyone was like, "Oh my gosh, Robin's saying curse words," and then the show came out and it was just okay. So like no one like there wasn't really
everyone forgot about it immediately.
Yeah, I'm not really I'm not really finding much to talk about. No one's really tweeting at us because no one listens to this.
Tell your girlfriend to tweet at us.
I don't think she has a Twitter. But yeah, if like literally any question, no matter how dumb or how like minute it is, any question that you have about anything relating to comics at all, go ahead and ask. The new Spider-Man game is coming out soon. Spider-Man Miles Morales for the PS5. I did pre-order the game, even though I do not have a pre-order in for the PS5, nor will I get one in the near future. But the first Spider-Man game is one of my favorite games that I played in a very long time. So I wanted to make sure that I would get my hands on the copy of the sequel, even though it's probably going to collect dust on my shelf for like a year or more.
I suck at the first Spider-Man game. I am absolutely terrible. I swung around, hit some buildings head on, and decided this is it for me.
It's so good. I've gotten all the achievements for it. I've beaten it on its hardest difficulty, which isn't too hard if you're just like doing New Game Plus and you already have everything unlocked. I have so much love for that game. There's so much like care put into it, like all the little all the suits you can unlock. I remember when I was going for all the trophies, I would just pull up like a random number generator and just be like, "What suit am I wearing for this play session?" I just like hit the button because like I couldn't because all the suits were so cool looking, and there's like just so much. It's like all the details, you know, like all the little Easter eggs and collectibles they put in. You can like visit Uncle Ben's grave and pay your respects, and then a trophy pops up for it, and it kind of devalues the moment for it. But to be fair, I probably wouldn't have known if it was in the game. If I hadn't seen the fact that there was a trophy for it. So, but yeah, I love that game so much. I cannot wait to eventually be able to afford a PS5 and play the sequel, which does include a remastered version of the game. You know what's weird though? In the remaster, they redid the modeling for his face. I'm pulling up an image for Kendra to look at. Yeah, so here in this image, this was his original face. It's not hard to find this. Just like Google Spider-Man Remastered face and then look at the images. This was his face in the original game, and this is his face in the remaster.
Why would they do that?
I don't know. The facial animations were fine. They were a little wonky because it's a video game, so facial animations aren't perfect. But I don't. They made him look like 10 years younger. It's so weird. He looks like a baby. But yeah, it's the same voice actor, but it's like they got an entirely new model to redo all the mocap and lip syncs and everything, and I don't understand why. Man, I probably should have done more prep. I apologize.
Batman. Bruce Wayne lets go a huge part of his superhero history.
Yes.
What are they talking about?
So we were actually talking about this over the past week. Batman just wrapped up a big event titled Joker War. It was another Joker fight because there seem to be a lot of those in comics. And part of it was that Joker stole all of Bruce Wayne's fortune.
Oh, okay.
And then in the aftermath, Batman was like, well, I can't exactly take the money back because now it's got like governmental attention on it. So we had to, he ended up giving the money because he got the money back. He ended up transferring it all to, I'm forgetting the character's name now. He was portrayed by, now I'm forgetting
Lucius
the actor
Fox?
name. Lucius Fox, thank you, who was famously portrayed by Morgan Freeman in the Christian Bale Batman trilogy. I usually tell people that Lucius Fox is like the business equivalent to Alfred. So Bruce Wayne is like the head of Wayne Enterprises or Wayne Incorporated, Wayne Technologies, whatever the writers want to call it. But Lucius Fox is the one that actually runs the company while Bruce is off beating up mentally damaged people. So yes, in the aftermath of Joker War, now that this like multiple billions of dollars is now under close scrutiny because the Joker was meddling with it. So Bruce had to transfer it all to Lucius Fox, and at the same time distance himself from Wayne Enterprises, functionally making him broke. So in the end of the last issue of Batman that was released, he announced that he's going to be moving into a brownstone within the city and just kind of figure out what poor Batman looks like.
How often do they release issues? Like, when do we see what happens next?
So Batman, I believe, releases twice a month. So not this Tuesday, but next Tuesday will be the next issue of Batman.
And is this in the same timeline as the Batman we just read?
Yes.
He's just been going through it.
Yeah, he's just been going through it, man. If you remember, the Rebirth event in 2016 served to unite New 52 and pre-Flashpoint into one timeline. So this is after that. So yes, this is the Batman that experienced the Court of Owls stuff.
But not the Batman who's dead.
Yes, also the Batman who is dead. I'm pretty confident in saying that one of the things that was included in New 52 was the fact that Batman, quote unquote, died. Because one of the Batman-related ongoings, which was titled Batman Incorporated, picked up on... it was the second volume of Batman Incorporated, and it picked up right after... Basically where Volume 1 of Batman Incorporated left off. It was one of the things that was like barely affected by New 52. And like that storyline is dependent on the fact that Batman was considered dead. So yes.
Lots been happening with Batman.
Lots has been happening. This is why comics is so hard to get into. It's stuff like this. Another question rolling in. Explain the different universes in the Spider-Man movie with Miles Morales in it. Like, is he supposed to be in our universe? Because there's a difference in blah, blah, blah. Yeah. So, the Marvel... This is in reference to the movie Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, which is one of my favorite movies in existence. I've watched it like 6 times. Have you seen it, Kendra?
I have seen it.
Great. Okay, so in the Marvel universe, dimensions and timelines are given different designations. So it's like Earth and then a number. So the normal, let's say, like the prime Marvel universe is Earth 616. That's its designation. And in case you're wondering, yes, the MCU does have its own designation. That's Earth 199999 or something like that. Earth 616 is kind of like the closest approximation to what our Earth is like. Our Earth has its own designation, so that's fun. Like, our planet is canonically within the Marvel multiverse. It's like Earth 1209 or something. And then Miles Morales, who is the young African-American Hispanic Spider-Man, who was the main character in Into the Spider-Verse, his stories usually take place in Earth 1610. I love talking about Into the Spider-Verse. One of the things that I love about it is like the little visual cues that they give that like show like, oh, this is not like the universe you're used to. So like when they're going through Times Square, you see like a sign that's clearly supposed to say Coca-Cola, but it's like some other brand. And there's like, since John Mulaney worked on Spider-Verse, one of the other things in the background is like, so John Mulaney did a comedy special with another comedian. God, I can't remember his name, and that sucks. Nick Kroll, thank you. Called Oh Hello. And one of the background Easter eggs in Into the Spider-Verse was like a billboard promoting like Oh Hello the series. So it's like all these little minutia that would be like, oh, this isn't the universe you're used to. Where it gets tricky is when non-comic book media claim that they're taking place in Earth 616. Because canonically within the Marvel multiverse, they're not. So, for example, in Spider-Man: Far From Home, which I watched recently, the antagonist claims that the MCU is Earth 616, and that he comes from a different Earth, which isn't true because, like I mentioned earlier, the MCU already has its own in-canon Earth designation. The same thing happens in Into the Spider-Verse. The old fat Spider-Man with like the sweatpants claims that he's from Earth 616, but it's like a different Earth 616. It gets weird and complicated. Huge props to the people that work on the Marvel fandom wiki, because they have a incredibly comprehensive list of all of the all of the universes that we know about that haven't officially given names, as well as a comprehensive list of Earth that they give temporary numbers to that haven't gotten an official number yet. It's insane. Anytime that like a cartoon comes out, or like a comic briefly shows an alternate future or something where like that hasn't already been named and cataloged, there's like already a page for it on the fandom, and they've already got like a temporary number set up. They are quick, and I love it. I have spent hours just reading through the Marvel fandom wiki. It's incredible. They do great work.
I feel like Marvel needs a new 52.
I don't know. I like the fact that Marvel kind of has the approach of like everything's happened and our characters are forever young, deal with it, because that makes it a lot easier to, if a character like pops up in an issue that you're reading, like a villain or something, and you're like, I don't know who that guy is, you can just be like Google, oh, that's it, and then you don't have to worry about like, what did it change in New 52, did it change again in Rebirth, was he present for like this crisis? You don't got to worry about any of that, like with DC. Like
it all happened,
and that's the beauty of it. The origin already happened, and that's it. There's nothing, you don't have to worry about retcons or timeline changes like you got to do with DC. Everything that happened in a Marvel comic happened. And that's the beauty of it. Let's see if there's any other headlines that we can talk about. I'm just being suggested like the same 10, which is not what I'm looking for. Not much. Okay, change the topic. What have I been reading recently? That's not part of the... I have been reading a lot of stuff written by Matt Fraction. He is a comic writer that I really like. Let me pull up some of the stuff that he's worked on. Most notably, I'd say, he worked on a Hawkeye series that basically completely revitalized the character. I cannot put into words how much I love Fraction's Hawkeye run. It is just a work of art. It's a piece of art, legitimately. We will cover it in the future on the show. We might even do it next time that we make something, because now it's just in my head. What else has he worked on? He and another creator named Chip Zdarsky, I'm not sure how to pronounce it, who's another creator I love. They've been working on a... can I say this on the radio? Is that an okay word to say?
I think so.
Well, we're going to assume yes, because I want to talk about it. Since 2013, he and Zdarsky have been creating a series for Image titled Sex Criminals. And it's another... both Fraction and... I'm just going to call him Chip, because I can't pronounce his last name. Both Matt Fraction and Chip they are incredible at writing characters that just feel really real. And I know that's a weird thing to say, but like in comic books, like it's an important distinction to make. Like when they're writing on a series, like their characters get hurt, and their characters have long-lasting injuries, and their characters have messy conversations. Their characters have like breakups and stuff. Fraction also wrote for a long time on X-Men. That's what I was reading recently. I was reading all of his stuff that he had done with X-Men. So yes, if you're looking for some comic stuff that feels more real. Look for some stuff written by Matt Fraction and or Chip Zdarsky. Chip has worked on Howard the Duck, which was very fun. He's worked on some recent Spider-Man stuff. He worked on Peter Parker: The Spectacular Spider-Man, which was a recent spin-off that was very fun. Yeah, just little creator spotlight there. That's pretty much all that I've read recently in terms of comics. Got another question rolling in. Again, just for full transparency, this is just my girlfriend texting me questions.
I love your girlfriend. Thank you to your girlfriend for single-handedly carrying the show.
Just this episode specifically. She just asks, isn't Hawkeye deaf in the comics? Yes, that is so Matt Fraction's run, and I should establish when he did that run, because I feel like it's important to have like a consistent timeline. 2012 was when he did the Hawkeye run. And this run is beloved by fans. This run, I think, is what established Hawkeye to be deaf and established him to kind of be like just kind of a mess, just kind of like a human mess. And those are both things that were removed in the MCU. In the MCU, like, he isn't deaf, which is, a matter with representation, and he has like a full loving family, which is just kind of not Hawkeye's vibe. Hawkeye's vibe is that he's just kind of like a trash human that was raised in a circus that shoots a bow and arrow good. So yeah, I do have issue with the fact that the MCU did not utilize that portion of his character, because representation matters, and having a deaf superhero, I think, matters. Hawkeye is getting his own Disney Plus series, so they might make him deaf in the show. I don't know. I can't predict what machinations Disney has going.
But that is still part of the MCU, and it would be very strange to suddenly say, "Well, now he's deaf."
Well, it could be like issue 1. He gets caught in an explosion, and then like explosions make people. It makes him deaf.
His loving family gone. His hearing gone.
Well,
his
family was brought back. His family was. That's another thing, because the most recent MCU movies were all centered around Thanos and the snap and getting rid of 50% of the population. But if it's 50%, then why did all of Hawkeye's family get dusted? That seems incredibly, I guess, unlucky for him. I was going to say it's lucky for the screenwriters, but unlucky for him as a character. But his family was brought back after they beat up Thanos, so he doesn't have to worry about that. Now that we're on this topic, let's talk about the MCU and their TV shows, because they are just awful with their TV shows and whether or not they matter. Let's talk in order of stuff that does matter and stuff in descending order to stuff that doesn't matter. At the top is the Disney Plus stuff, none of which has come out, but that all seems like since it is being run by Disney and Marvel themselves, it seems like that stuff is going to directly affect the movies. I think it's already been confirmed that the events of WandaVision will directly lead into the events of Doctor Strange 2. Just under that is the ABC stuff, namely Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. So ABC produced Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., Agent Carter, and Inhumans, and they're all technically part of the MCU, but they don't really the movie stuff in the movies affected those TV shows, but not really vice versa. Most notably, famously in the first Avengers movie, Agent Coulson died, and then the TV shows brought him back, and they were like, "How'd you survive?" And he just goes, "Surgery. I don't know. It hurt." I don't think he ever appears again in the movies, but that's that. And then the Netflix series, so that's Daredevil, Jessica Jones, Luke Cage, Iron Fist, The Defenders, and The Punisher. That is another thing where the events of the movies heavily influenced the events in the Netflix shows, but none of those characters have shown up in any movies. There was a rumor that we talked about a couple weeks ago that Daredevil would show up in Spider-Man 3, but I think that's been deconfirmed.
It has?
I think so, yeah. It doesn't seem likely that he's going to be appearing. And then we have the Hulu and Freeform stuff, which I'm just lumping together as
unimportant. All of it.
Cheap, unimportant, like young adult drama that belongs on the CW that doesn't affect anything. That being Runaways, Cloak and Dagger, and Hellstrom. That's just like I haven't watched any of those. They have no appeal to me. That's just like we're teenagers and we feel things really hard. And also we're superheroes that use big, expensive Marvel names. Don't you feel for us? And it's like, not really. But I think those probably have the weakest connections to the MCU movies. Yeah. Have you seen the WandaVision trailer?
No, I don't think I have.
Okay, well, I am going to show you it after the show is over because it is not going to be interesting radio to just listen to us watch a trailer. But yes, that's the first Disney Plus show that's coming out. It's coming out this December. We don't have a distinct date yet, but that is going to follow the characters of Scarlet Witch and Vision. Should be interesting. We've also got in 2021 we're going to have The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. We're going to have Loki, and we're going to have What If. I'm very excited for What If.
I am also very excited for What If. That was my next question. Are you excited for What If?
I am very excited for What If. It's already getting a second season. Like none of the other Disney Plus shows have even come out yet, and they've already confirmed that What If is getting a second season. So, What If is the name of it's something that Marvel will play with from time to time, either as like an ongoing or just a couple of one shots. They are exploring alternate universes that build off a question that begins with the words "what if." So, like, what if Captain America had survived World War II and wasn't frozen? Or, like, what if someone else was bitten by the radioactive spider? So on and so forth. So the Disney Plus show is going to be animated, exploring some of those what ifs, and the voice cast is going to be comprised of the actual actors from the movies. They're going to be reprising their roles.
That's amazing.
That is amazing. We've also got, in 2022, Hawkeye, which we just talked about, Ms. Marvel, who is a new character to the MCU, Moon Knight, who we also talked about recently, and She-Hulk, who is going to be another new character to the MCU. Ms. Marvel, I'm not sure if this is talking about Captain Marvel, Ms. Marvel, or Ms. Marvel, Ms. Marvel. And I know that, okay, so it's going to be, okay. So, a little bit of background. The character that we know as Captain Marvel in the MCU, in the comics, she was initially named Ms. Marvel, and she was like the female sidekick to the original Captain Marvel, who was a dude. But then the dude character died of cancer, and Ms. Marvel became Captain Marvel. And then they introduced a new Ms. Marvel named Kamala Khan. I'm sorry if I'm butchering that. I'm not entirely sure how to pronounce that. Who debuted in 2013, and she is Pakistani-American, and she operates out of Jersey City, and she's getting her own Disney Plus show. That was Ms. Marvel came from a time when the second Ms. Marvel, I should say, came from a time when Marvel was experimenting with expanding their like representation of minorities and such. So it was in this time period when like Miles Morales became more prominent. There was a new Hulk that was like a young Asian American man.
What year was this?
This was like 20. This was like from like I'd say like 2013 to 2016, 17ish.
So is this when Hawkeye became deaf?
No, Hawkeye became deaf in like 2012.
Okay.
Also during this initiative, like Thor became a woman. Not that the character of Thor did not transition. There was a new Thor, and she was a woman. She picked up the hammer and became Thor because the old Thor was unworthy. Sorry. And then, similar to the MCU, Steve Rogers passed the mantle of Captain America onto the Falcon. So in this time, like Thor was now female, Captain America was now black, etc., etc. And I was like, wow, Marvel, you're doing like a pretty good job at like having representation. And then like 3 years later, they undid all of it. Steve came back and became Captain America. Thor came back and took Thor back. The Asian American Hulk was like depowered, and Bruce Banner came back, and they just undid all of it. And I was like, come on, you were so close to like actually having good representation, and you just undid it because status quo. Ugh. And then quickly, She-Hulk is the cousin of the Hulk. She is a lawyer, and the story is usually that she needed a blood transfusion, and Bruce was like, "Yeah, I'll give her my blood." And then because of that blood, she became She-Hulk.
Was that the intended purpose? Did he know that?
I don't remember. I haven't actually read that initial storyline, but she's fun. Her thing is that like she usually maintains her intelligence when she becomes She-Hulk, so she like most of the time she's She-Hulk, and she's like fun and quirky and funny. And she was actually one of the first comic book characters to do the whole like fourth wall breaking thing. So yeah, She-Hulk's getting her own show in 2022. I know nothing about it because I don't think anything's been said about it. But very excited for that. DC's also doing their TV show thing, but people don't really care.
No one cares about DC TV
They've
shows.
got Titans, they've got Doom Patrol. They had their own streaming service, but then they shut it down and everything's now being moved to HBO Max.
Fantastic. I own HBO Max.
Great. So you can watch. Apparently Doom Patrol is good, and apparently Swamp Thing's good. I wouldn't know. Harley Quinn Season 2 is happening. Young Justice, I think, has been confirmed for a 4th season. That's exciting to me. Yeah, that's about all we have for this week. Again, if you want to send in questions, you can tweet us at CBBCPod. That's at CBBCPOD. If you want to email us your questions, you can find us at cbbcpod@gmail.com. Next week, we will be discussing the first 2 Hellboy storylines, that being Seed of Destruction and Wake the Devil. They have been printed and reprinted in many different ways, just like for like any sort of Hellboy Volume 1 sort of deal. They'll be easy to find. Until next week, I've been Matt Lasik.
I am Kendra Forte.
Excelsior.